Welcome back to another episode of the B2B Founder Podcast, where we help B2B starters take their companies from startups to scale-ups. I'm your host, Brett Trainer. Today, I have Ofer Yourvexel on the show to share his startup to scale-up journey. Ofer is the CEO and co-founder of Pepperi. Pepperi is a B2B sales platform for brands and wholesale distributors. I think these founder stories are so interesting and valuable to founders. In this episode, Ofer is transparent about his journey with what worked, what didn't work, and what he would do differently. A couple of the topics we dig into are why he bootstrapped and how that worked out really well, how he broke through growing beyond his network, his go-to-market strategy, and what you can learn from it, plus a whole lot more. I think you'll really enjoy this one. Please share, like, and subscribe. It is really appreciated. Now, on to the interview. Hey, good morning, Ofer. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for hosting me.
It's great to have you. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Anytime I can get a B2B founder that's enjoying a high level of success, it's a thrill to get you on. So before I get into some of my questions, it'd be great if you give the audience just a little bit about your background and Pepperi and what you guys are working on today.
My background, I'm unfortunately, almost 30 years in technology. And been to different high-tech companies, always in software, always in enterprise software, and served some of the largest companies in the world also before Pepperi. Always quite early in my career, I was an executive level in companies like Amdocs and traded in NASDAQ and Jakarta and a few others. Before that, I was in the Navy for like 6 years. Officer, and that's it, basically.
The rest is history, as they say, right?
Yeah. And I'm from Israel, if it was not clear from my accent. So I'm Israeli.
Got it. No, that's helpful. And then Pepperi, how long ago did you start the company?
Yeah, and in respect to Pepperi, it's like over 11 years now, reaching toward the 12th year. Pepperi is providing a complete B2B sales solution that encompassing all the B2B sales needs of companies that are selling physical goods, mainly consumer goods. We are serving customers all over the world, around 70 countries that we have customers that are large customer like Heineken, Dermalogica, if you're familiar with, Kimberly-Clark, as well as many small and medium ones, but the majority of them are medium to large, the big majority of our customers. We have around over 1,000 customers worldwide. And what differentiates us in general is the ability really to serve the entire spectrum of B2B sales, which typically you'll find different companies, different solutions serving the traditional offline sales, meaning reps on the road, in that respect of physical goods, selling from mobile devices on native, typically technology, and e-commerce, which typically is running on browser, online technology. Pepperi is providing the complete solution on both technologies from one unified business logic. We are not integrating two business logic to talk between them. No, it's really one business logic serving both the offline world and the online world, which is quite unique.
Yes.
Typically, when you go to medium to large companies, when they publish a bid, it will be completely separated between these two, with two separate solutions and two business logics. And with Pepperi, everything is in one place as a product. And when I say as a product, I mean that the product can really be configured, not customized, but configured, meaning without coding, to cover every business scenario you might be thinking of within this world, of course, of B2B sales, which is, again, quite unique, mainly on the native side of the business. I mean, native applications, native technology.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. And, you joked about 30 years in technology. I hate to admit I've been 30 years now in the B2B space myself and kind of bounce back and forth between enterprise and startups. And, you're right with the technology, just the sales tech and the MarTech, and there's probably 7,000 different technology platforms you could choose from. So I knew it was just a matter of time before we start to see that unified and simplified. And I think I'm going to know the question to this, but why did you start the company? What was the gap? Was it too many tech, or what were you trying to solve when you originally started?
Like, I think everything else in my life, I would say it's coincidence, and then you identify opportunities. It was not planned. So everything started like almost 12 years ago. Back then, I was still vice president in Amdocs, when I was approached by two separate individuals that used to work with me and told me about investors who are looking for someone to take an idea that they are trying to make it work for like 3 years and without success. This was for warranties in the sky, in the cloud, warranties in the cloud. And this is how we started. Actually, I initiated everything as the name of the company was warranty.com for warranties in the cloud. Part of the solution of those warranties in the cloud was to provide real-time information about sell-through information that you gather through the warranties that the retailers were issuing while they were selling watches. And it was mainly around the watch industry. 3 years after, with like 12 customers, iPad came out. It was around 2011, 2012. And when the iPad came out, we decided to provide this sell-through information on iPads, designed specifically for iPad, but still on a browser. And those 12 customers really loved it, but they told us, look, we need it to work offline. We need it as an application. And we said, you know what, let's do that. We did the application. We released it to the App Store back then. And it was so unique back then to have a sales application with catalogs and that salespeople can take orders. And in like 1 quarter, from 12 customers, I had almost 100 customers from all over the world. But they were tiny customers.
Got it. Okay.
Simply bought it for like $28 a month per user and started to use it. So this is how we moved into this sales application. The idea at the beginning was sales application for people that see the warranties, but very quickly we saw that the potential with sales application is way higher if we'll drop the warranty. But this was pivoting and dropping what we were doing for like 3 years. So it was a tough decision, but we did it. And then while we developed that, we realized that, yeah, it's innovative for now, but this is a market that will diminish. It's too crowded. If we will not differentiate ourselves, we will not survive. So in 2014, 2015, we took a decision basically to drop again everything we did to the garbage and developed everything from scratch as an enterprise level. And as something that will be able, back then it was iPad only, but something that will work on iPad, iPhone, Android phone, Android tablets, and browsers, all from one business logic. And that it will be scalable and blah, 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 that it will be able to serve larger companies. We were aiming toward the mid-market and above. And then we released this application. We called it Pepperi, and later on we changed the name of the company to be Pepperi. And since then we are developing this platform that we started in 2015, I would say.
Oh, that's remarkable. Yeah. I mean, you hear the stories of pivots, but you really did it twice where you started over. I mean, for the right reasons, but that's, it's a great lesson for folks that are starting a company. Be prepared to pivot, right? Don't fall so in love with it that you miss the bigger opportunity.
I think we had only one real pivot, because pivoting technology, I don't think it's a pivot, although it's very problematic, especially, when you have a product that is not mature. So you're always missing features and you want to continue to sell because this is your bread and butter, you live from it, while you are actually not developing any further, starting something from scratch that is missing even more features.
Right.
So 2015 was really a challenging year, but we were able to continue the growth, even in such a situation. The first pivot is way more problematic because you have investors and you need to suddenly tell them, you know what, you invested for 3 years and it goes to the garbage.
Right.
This is more problematic. And also your employees, they get attached to the name, to the brand, and to what you were telling to the world, and suddenly you are changing it.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, this is Bootstrapped, right? Your current company is Bootstrapped.
We have individual non-institutional investors,
Okay.
and we are profitable. We do not need, not that I'm opposing an investment, but we do not need an investment in order to continue. We are profitable, yes.
That's refreshing to hear, right? You work with a lot of founders and talk with a lot of founders that it's all they're doing is fundraising and thinking about the next raise instead of, what you're doing, making it profitable in the unit economics and, how do we grow out of profits? And it opens up your opportunities, right? If you get the investment, you don't need the investment, which puts the leverage back in your hands. So kudos on that.
Yeah, it's a different way of managing. You don't have a pile of money that you are burning. You need to really live everything you do. You need to make sure that is really giving you the return and not stories, but the real return. Otherwise, you don't do it.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense. And I wish more folks would take that path. And, hopefully with you on the podcast, we'll help educate and enlighten a few to consider it if at all possible. So along those lines, so 2015, when you kind of moved towards the enterprise and mid-market, what did you do to get some of your first customers? And then I kind of want to get into then how did you expand beyond that? I'm just curious how you got the first folks on board with the new platform.
From the beginning, our technology on the mobile side was, I would say it, and I might sound arrogant, that our technology on the mobile side is more flexible than anything else I've seen on the mobile side. You'll find a very flexible solution on the web, like all the giants, have very flexible web technologies, but you won't find, I'm not familiar with good, flexible, cloud-based. We are cloud and only cloud, which is another thing we insisted on. We are not developing two types, only cloud. So you won't find, I think, any mobile technology that is so flexible in our ecosystem I'm talking about, including those of the giants, I dare to say. I think we had this wow factor when we did demos for customers that needed the mobile side. And then later on, as we catch up on it, then we started to also, this was our uniqueness to start with. You always need to find the hole, where you can get in.
Yes.
And then on the website, on the web technology side, the competition is way more fierce. But then we started with that and then complemented it with the web, and later on started to develop much more on the web part. This is the way we got into the market. So at the beginning, mainly through mobile.
Okay.
And then in the last few years, we are winning deals with some of the largest companies in the world. Actually, Yana is working right now on my marketing. My head of product marketing is working right now on a press release. I cannot say yet the name, but it will be published in the next 2 to 3 weeks, of one of the largest food companies in one of the largest countries in the world. They are the number one in that country, that we won purely on the B2B e-commerce side, which at the beginning we were not. At the beginning, it was just on the mobile side, on the rep side, on the field solutions. So it's sort of evolution. You need to start where you are strong and be very narrow, and then you start to expand.
Riches in the niches, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and it's so interesting. And one, congratulations. By the time this episode comes out, we probably could list it because it'll be public in a couple of weeks. But, a lot of the founders that I have on this show that have gone from, I told you, from kind of the startup to scaling, eight figures, if you will, they all hit a plateau in growth at some point, right? Whether what it turned out, a lot of them successfully sold into their network, but then we had to start reaching new folks, new markets. It got much more difficult, and some don't get by that, and some took 12 months to figure out. I'm just curious how when you started to see that growth going, how did you get new customers? How did you get into new markets? Was it all referrals from customers? Because people seem to love your product. I'm just kind of curious how you took the company to the next level after you had the early momentum.
Actually, in that respect, Pepperi is quite a unique company again, I would say. We don't have any SDRs at all. We don't do any outbound calls.
Right.
And we are not chasing new customers, phone calls trying to persuade them. We are only dealing with customers that are approaching us. It does not necessarily mean that they are all referral, but it means that it's all inbound. The only thing we do in terms of outbound, we do nurturing and outbound email campaigns. But that's it. If they're not approaching us and explicitly asking to be buying or interested in something, we will not be approaching them and we will not be chasing them. After a while in the nurturing program, we'll drop them from the nurturing and that's it. So in that respect, I think it's way more efficient to do it this way. Our focus is always on being efficient. As I said at the beginning, we don't want to burn money. The other thing is really, and I don't think I'm saying something new here, we were talking about focus, is really in everything you do, try to create momentum. In order to create momentum, you need to focus on geographies, you need to focus on industries. So you might have success in other places, but you cannot focus on those places. Make sure that your resources are focused on specific geographies that you can chew and on specific industries in order to create the momentum. You don't want to be on an uphill battle all the time. On the contrary, you want to have, even if theoretically your market size is way smaller, in reality, you'll see way more sales.
No, I love that. And I agree with you. I came from the lead gen and, SDR world a number of years ago, but, we are in a digital first. I think the pandemic kind of helped, slam the door on a lot of that efficiency of outbound outreach. So you guys were ahead of your time a little bit. Was it a content marketing strategy and word of mouth and those things just quickly spread and then just had the folks internally ready to take it when people actually did raise their hand and say, hey, we're interested, right?
Yeah, when you think about the salary of SDR and how much you can do with it in terms of content and in terms of creating an interest and building, this, I think it's way more efficient eventually. And it's sort of an asset that those things that you are doing as opposed to just calling them.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, one of the typical things you'll hear from a newer founder is like, well, I think I'm ready to hire some salespeople. I'm like, maybe not, right? I think there's bigger opportunities, especially if you can drive the inbound piece. It makes your life so much easier. But start early, right? Start getting that word out and the content as early as possible. I almost think I believe it's a, cost of doing business is your content marketing strategy. You really have to do it if you want people to find you. If not, you said you're going to burn a lot of cash, time, resources trying to connect with people. I'm curious, and I know you had some good momentum heading in before the pandemic hit, and curious what kind of impact that had on your business. Did you have to make any direction changes? Because, I talked to founders that the pandemic was a blessing in disguise, which is hard to believe purely from a business standpoint. And other businesses, obviously like hospitality and those, was not, definitely a benefit. So I'm just kind of curious what happened kind of with your business at the beginning. Did you have to make any pivots, as we entered into this?
We were very lucky, I must say. Although it was a mixture of things, I think we were lucky because 3 years ago, we defined the strategy of the company, go-to-market and product. We had an internal debate whether to invest more in mobile and the relevant applications or to invest more in B2B commerce. And we decided to invest more in the B2B commerce space. And I don't need to tell you that the pandemic really was booming on the B2B commerce. And I think the product reached the right level of maturity the second part of 2019 to really compete with the giant on a pure B2B commerce level without any mobile solution, which is really making it even way more appealing to our customers. So what I'm saying is you can judge Pepperi on the B2B commerce by itself, browser-based, which is what most of our competitors are delivering, or you can judge Pepperi on top of it on the benefit of, okay, you can now have B2B commerce, not just on your browser, but as out of the box, whatever you did on the back office, you're getting immediately a private label application on Google Store and on iTunes that is branded and that is native out of the box. So the second part of 2019, our browser-based solution reached a level of maturity that I can say we can compete just with that. And so we were lucky. So when the pandemic started, what we've seen is really an amazing acceleration of sales in B2B commerce. And at least 50% of it was from our existing customers. We had customers that were really reluctant to move into B2B commerce before that because they thought their competitor would beat them with reps. And they say, no, we want to give the personal touch and the order size will go down and the competitor will beat us. And suddenly the pandemic came and they were forced. It was the only way to do business and they were panicked. And the beauty is that with Pepperi, they could be up and running with B2B commerce. I'm not exaggerating, in 2 weeks because integration is there. Everything is there. The only thing you need now is just to open the switch and define the look and feel. The processes are there as well. All the special pricing, everything is there already for each customer, including the promotions. Everything is there. You just need to open the switch. So we were lucky in that respect. On the other end, we saw drop in number of users. People cancel licenses for the users because there were less people in the field, and some companies really reduced the number of field sales forever, not just for the pandemic. So on the other end, we saw a decline there. And also we saw a decline with some of the industries that we were serving. And you mentioned actually one of them, which is the hospitality. We had a very large customer that is number one in, actually, I believe he's number one. I don't want to say their name, because it's sort of a negative, but they are selling tourist presents, all over the world. And they're number one. They have like 50 offices all over the world. The big majority of them are using us. And they went from 100 to 10%, of what they used to, something like that. So we saw that as well. And we lost customers that really lost their business. But all in all, even last year, we were profitable.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And like I said, living in this world for 30 years, I know how needed these solutions are and how outdated some of the thinking was, right? We have to have a rep, or when somebody's got to pick up the phone when they call to place an order and like, well, your customers probably would prefer to do it online. There's no reason you can't touch base with them. So I think we'll see an acceleration. So my guess is you guys are going to be busy for quite a while as some of the more mature industries try to catch up with the digital and the e-commerce portion of it, right?
We are seeing it now big time. Since the pandemic, we saw, for example, in the food industry, they were really reluctant to do it because it's much more of logistic. The rep is there anyway because it's sort of a replenishment process. Right. And suddenly we see the food industry going there big time, not just in food, but this is just one example.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's like I said, digital's here to stay. And, that's why I'm so optimistic about certain startups having the ability to build a much leaner organization, more nimble, more efficient, built on, data and digital, going after some of these more legacy areas. I think it's a fascinating time we're heading into with, again, being the B2B person, right? I think it's, it's going to be super interesting where this all plays out. So, thinking back over the 10-year journey or even the more recent 5-6-year journey, is there anything you would have done differently? It sounds like you pushed a lot of the right buttons, did a lot of the right things. Is there anything you would have done differently?
It only sounds like that because now I'm smart enough, but I did all the mistake of not doing what I'm telling you need to do. So to start with, I went after too many industries. I thought it will be easy because we were too successful. So at the beginning, when you gather you have a unique solution and everyone wants, and it looks very appealing to everyone at the beginning. So you say, well, there's no need for vertical focus. So I made that mistake. I made a mistake before we moved to Pepperi of trying to develop, being a small company, trying to develop Android and iPad solutions separately and Windows back then before we decided to drop it. And then I realized it's a nightmare. I need a cross-platform technology. And back then there was no cross-platform technology. Even today, there's nothing that is good as Pepperi for what we do. So we needed to develop a proprietary, but it took me more than a year to realize that. And to decide that we need to do Pepperi and throw everything to the garbage. So I have my shares of mistakes, trust me. If I'm smart today to tell you all those things, is because I made those mistakes.
Right. No, I think that's the way you learn. And as long as you don't make too many of the big ones and learn from others, right, is part of the process. So no, it makes a lot of sense. So before I get to my final question, just one more on kind of the business. And so what's next for you guys as we're, rounding out here the end of Q1 in 2021? What's the focus this year?
The focus this year, we are working on two things. One of them I cannot share.
Okay, fair enough.
We intend to release only next year, hopefully the first part, if not the second part of next year, we'll see. But this year, what we are releasing to the market is more features within the B2B space that are just improving our reach in terms of what we can do. In terms of flexibility, we are releasing another layer of flexibility in our configuration, which again, the uniqueness of that is that it works across the different operating systems, which again is very, very unique. But we are not doing anything, that is taking us out of where we're supposed to be. Next year, it's a different story. And we are working on next year as well. So, but next year, we'll see.
Yeah.
I cannot talk about it.
No, fair enough. We'll have to have you back on maybe at the end of this year to touch base and see what's next.
We'll be happy to.
And I know you had mentioned earlier that the majority of the focus is on enterprise level B2B companies now. Is there
mid-size? Mid-size, mid to enterprise. I would say companies that are selling 100 million and above. Definitely not the tiny QuickBooks customers that we used to serve when we started.
We could probably have a whole other discussion on how to, if I'm smaller, to think about moving and morphing into the solution that you guys have to offer. Because that's a pretty big gap from, call it a $10 million company to 100 million, and a lot of the process and the changes that need to happen. So maybe that will get you to move downstream a little bit after you dominate the top end of the market.
So we are also serving those QuickBooks through partners, but not direct. The problem is our solution is became too sophisticated for a founder of a small, distributor, which is typically those QuickBooks customers that wants to use it. It might be confusing for him. And for us, we prefer that partners will simplify it for him than that we will deal with it direct. So we have a mixture of go-to-market strategies,
Awesome. Now it makes sense. And all right, as I warned you at the beginning, I ask one final question, and I'm really curious to get your perspective on this. What is one thing, Ofer, that you would highly recommend, personal or business, professional, whatever's top of mind for you right now?
Make sure that you enjoy. I'm not sure how to say it, but I'm sure I don't think I'm unique in that respect. But if you're not enjoying what you're doing, the minute you'll enjoy what you're doing is the minute you'll be good in what you're doing. And if you're not enjoying, you have a problem, a big problem. So you need to ask yourself, and everyone has different questions for himself, what makes you happy? I'm talking now on a professional life, although it's for everything you do. But on the professional side is really make sure that you enjoy what you're doing, which means that you need to examine whether your business is something that makes you happy, the people that you are surrounded by, and you need to enjoy. And I think if people see that you enjoy it, then everyone enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and I think that's such good advice and so rarely taken, right? Because it is, if you don't enjoy the process, and it can be a grind, right? I mean, you've got the momentum going now, but as you said, this is a 10-year process for you. And if you wouldn't have enjoyed that, the day-to-day and what you were working on, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation today. And I think, some of the younger entrepreneurs and founders get caught up in the end game without realizing how much time and effort has to go into the process. And if you don't like that process, you may be disappointed by the time, you get to the outcome that you're looking for.
You always need to have this perspective of taking one step backward and say, look, it's such a great thing what I'm doing. And I achieved so much, and I'm not talking about me right now. I'm talking in every step. And okay, even if I'll fail eventually, I'm doing a great thing. I enjoy it. Let's continue. And even if you see a block, and it doesn't matter, enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah,
and it
100%.
will pay off.
It took me a while to figure that out, but as I say, better late than never. And right, there's no time like the present to do it. But yeah, 100% agree with you. I think that's really good advice. So awesome. Well, Ofer, I want to be respectful of your time. I know how busy you are. Any last parting words of wisdom for wannabe founders or founders in their early stage of their business?
No, I think we covered it all.
Awesome.
Covered it all, and thank you very much. Really pleasure. We'll be happy to revisit end of year.
That sounds like a plan. And if there are folks that want to reach out and learn more about you, what's the best place for them to connect with you?
As always, Pepperi.com. You can go to Pepperi.com. You'll find all the information, and you can also ask if someone wants to approach me, you can ask through the info@Pepperi.com.
Gotcha. And I would highly encourage people to check out your website. There's a ton of free content. The videos are on there. It's really well done, which goes back to our content strategy. So for a B2B site, it looks almost more of a direct to consumer with the feel and it's just really well done. So Ofer, again, thank you very much for joining the program. I appreciate it. And like I said, best of luck, and we'll check back in with you in 6 months to see where you're at.
Thank you very, very much. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.